Welcome to this 10 More Safety Meeting Topics video. This is the second video in a series of short safety content messages for frequently important safety concepts at the workplace. These topics are designed to be a few minutes in length and work great for a short start of shift safety meeting or as general awareness to increase your knowledge and safety at your job. More detailed and specific safety content can be found on the Supply Chain Pros channel. At the conclusion of this video, please check out the channel if you desire to learn more ways to stay safe while at work. Chapters will be provided for your ease to navigate the different topics contained in the video. Thank you for watching, and without further ado, let's buckle up and get into the video. Elevated falls occur when a worker falls from a height above onto another surface below. Some elevated fall hazard scenarios include unguarded leading edges, open holes, improper guardrails or leaning over guardrails, damaged equipment such as ladders, stairs, or safety equipment, and improper use of equipment such as ladders. In the event that you need to step up onto another surface, you just created the potential for an elevated fall incident to occur. You can reduce or eliminate the risk associated with an elevated fall by engineering controls, such as physical barriers and guardrails, using a proper fall arrest system, such as a body harness, self-retracting lanyard, and an approved anchor point. The proper use of ladders, which includes using 3 points of contact when climbing, not leaning to one side while on the ladder, setting the ladder at a proper angle, and securing the ladder to prevent movement during use. Warning signs can help to communicate fall hazards to nearby workers if they are placed near the fall hazard. When seeing a sign, recognize that an elevated fall hazard is present and plan ahead to avoid this safety risk. Next time that you work in a scenario that puts you at risk of an elevated fall accident, make sure to wear your fall restraint and the proper equipment to keep you safe and unharmed. Imagine a worker discovers he missed the last screw to complete a job and he already put away his drill, but his pocket knife is handy, so he uses it to tighten up that last screw. You've probably seen something similar happen at your job, or perhaps you have even done this yourself. 9 times out of 10, everything goes just fine, but it only takes one time that the blade slips or breaks and causes a severe laceration, a flying sharp and broken knife blade, or damage to the material. Some common examples of using the wrong tool are using a tool for a purpose it was never intended for, using a damaged tool, using the right tool incorrectly, improperly modifying a tool, and not taking proper safety precautions, such as wearing your PPE when needed. Some reasons that incorrectly may cause the use of the wrong tool is maybe we haven't been trained properly on the correct tool for the job, or we don't know the hazards associated with this tool or its use. Or maybe we think an injury can't happen to us, or that it seems faster or easier to just use this one that I already have handy. Workers should always use the right tool for the job. No amount of time saved doing something faster is worth the trade-off if you sustain an injury while doing it. If you believe working conditions are unsafe or dangerous, you should bring the conditions to your employer's attention immediately. You have a right to refuse to do a work task that is protected by OSHA regulation if all of the following conditions are met. First, you have asked the employer to eliminate the danger and the employer failed to do so. And you refuse to work in good faith. This means that you must genuinely believe that an imminent danger exists. And a reasonable person would agree that there is real danger of death or serious injury, and there isn't enough time due to the urgency of the hazard to get it corrected through regular enforcement channels, such as requesting an OSHA inspection. If you see someone else doing something wrong, don't hesitate to speak with them. It's better to prevent an accident ahead of time than deal with its consequences afterwards. Workers have the right and responsibility to stop any work activity when they feel that they cannot proceed safely. This is intended to safeguard a worker from working on a task that he or she is uncomfortable with from a safety standpoint. If at any point you are ever uncomfortable working on a task due to safety concerns, stop working immediately and communicate your company's safe word to your boss. If you don't know your company's safe word, ask your supervisor ahead of time or communicate the generic phrase in the moment, "My right to stop unsafe work." In this instance, your supervisor should partner with you to safely navigate the hazardous situation. All employees are responsible for working safely, and all companies are responsible for creating a safe work environment for their employees. If your employer retaliates against you for refusing to perform the dangerous work, it is your right to contact OSHA. Complaints of retaliation must be made to OSHA within 30 days of the alleged reprisal. When mounting or dismounting a truck in which the driver must get up into an operating position or a cab, one of the most common safety hazards is the risk of slipping and falling. Slip, trip, and fall injuries are continuously one of OSHA's top 10 injuries each year. The most common injuries that result from slips, trips, and falls are sprains, fractures, and dislocated joints, often in the ankles or wrists. Shoulder and knee injuries are also commonly injured body parts as well. Due to the potential for injuries resulting from slips, falls, or simply losing your balance, it is important that all drivers practice the 3 points of contact rule. This common safety rule depicts that at all times there should be 3 parts of your body in secure contact with the vehicle or ground when mounting or dismounting. This can include 2 hands and 1 foot in contact while stepping up with the other foot, or both feet and 1 hand in contact with the vehicle or ground when reaching for the next handhold. Utilizing the 3 points of contact creates 3 unique and solid anchor points to prevent slipping and falling. In the event that one of the 3 anchor points, the most important one, your foot, slips or loses grip or traction, there are 2 more anchor points to help prevent a slip and a fall. This 3 points of contact principle can extend to more than just vehicle use. This principle can be used when going up or down stairs to provide an extra level of safety as you navigate the elevation change, or if there's ice or liquid that is being stepped over, such as rain or snow, on an exterior staircase or walk path. Emergency exits should never have items blocking them, as they are a direct exit from the facility. In the event of an emergency, blocked exits create an unnecessary and preventable hazard. Some emergencies in which evacuation is necessary include fire, chemical spills, or bomb threats. Some common items that can block an emergency exit are stacks of pallets, products, or materials, a parked forklift or a piece of machinery, janitorial supplies, load restraints, especially load bars, and large tools or ladders. Workers should discuss and understand their facility's planned meeting area in the event of an emergency evacuation. All workers must meet at this location to ensure that everyone is accounted for in the event of a building evacuation. A supervisor should account for each worker using their department's roster of who is present at work for that day. If a worker is missing, the choice to go back into an evacuated building carries significant safety risk. If anyone knows the make and model of the vehicle that the missing worker drives, check the parking lot to see if the vehicle is still present. At minimum, ensure any missing workers are reported to the authorities when they arrive on the scene. Make sure that you understand the different alarm sounds at your job. Many buildings not only have a fire alarm, but may also have other alarms as well, such as a security burglar alarm or other various system alarms. It is also a best practice to periodically conduct evacuation drills to test the performance and the knowledge of the building's staff. The only evacuation without a meeting point is an active shooter situation. In the event of an active shooter, it is advised to follow the run, hide, fight response method. Ensure to keep your cell phone close as an important communication tool in this scenario. Any object has the potential to become a falling object hazard whenever it is at a height above the ground. The most commonly struck portions of a worker are the head, shoulders, arms, legs, and feet. Struck by falling object hazards involve objects falling from an elevation onto a worker at a lower level. And injuries from these hazards include instances where the injured person is bruised, fractured, crushed, pinned, or caught under a falling object. Anytime that a worker picks up something above the floor that they are standing on, the potential for a falling object hazard situation has been created. Some examples of falling objects include something as simple as a pallet stood on its side can tip over and fall, landing on a worker's foot. A pallet or product retrieval from a height in the racks. Loose materials or tools when working at a height. A worker being struck by a load or parts of a load that falls from a vehicle or other equipment. A crane boom or another piece of equipment breaks, collapses, and strikes a worker. A section from a structure being cut apart falls and lands on a person. Falling object accidents can be prevented by securely and neatly storing loose materials and items at a height. Store heavy objects close to the floor or ground level. Always be aware of unstable objects and do your best to fix them before raising. Do your best to avoid situations where items could fall and strike you or a coworker. And if an item does fall, attempt to dodge it or to seek cover to prevent injury. Never place yourself in harm's way when addressing a falling item. It is important to make sure that our bodies are ready to go at the start of our work shift in order to prevent injury. Some work tasks can be very physically demanding, and jumping straight into physical work while our bodies are cold increases our chances of muscle strains and sprains. In order to prevent soft tissue injuries, some jobs encourage a start of shift stretching or warm-up program. A proper warm-up helps prevent injuries, but not all stretching is beneficial before work. Many people assume that holding a stretch, such as bending over and touching your toes, prepares the body for physical activity. This type of static stretching actually relaxes the muscles, reducing their ability to react quickly. Instead, a dynamic warm-up gets the blood flowing and activates the muscles needed for lifting, bending, and moving efficiently. At the beginning of your shift, try arm circles to loosen up your shoulders, torso twists to improve flexibility, body weight squats and lunges to activate your leg muscles, marching in place or light jogging to increase circulation, and jumping jacks, push-ups, or anything to get the body warmed up, moving, and ready for work. As your shift progresses, continue to keep the muscles of your body loose and warm. Repeat your warm-up exercises on occasion to reduce stiffness and improve your range of motion. Sometimes doing a group warm-up can be kind of awkward. Feel free to develop your own start of shift routine that is best for your body's needs. Staying fit and active outside of work can also help reduce work-related injuries. The invention of the cell phone brought about many benefits to the world that we live in. From instant communication, to web browsing for information at the tips of our fingers, to a camera that is always just a moment away, and just to prove your fourth grade teacher wrong, a calculator that travels everywhere with us that does in fact fit in our pocket, Mrs. Johnson. Many of these benefits help us complete our job each and every day. From making business calls, to responding to email communication, to quickly checking the numbers for the day on our calculator, the cell phone has become a tool that helps us be better at our jobs, if we choose to use it correctly. When appropriately using a cell phone, workers must be standing still, out of the way of any moving workplace traffic or additional hazards while using the device. The best place for us to use a cell phone is in a chair, at a desk, or in an office. The moment that a worker begins walking through the workplace looking at or speaking on a cell phone, they are distracted and open themselves up to increased risk of a safety incident. Workers are strictly prohibited from using any electronic device while performing safety-sensitive tasks, such as operating heavy machinery or working at a height. It is not advised to have a cell phone on the dash of our equipment, as this situation has the potential to become a visual distraction from the safe operation of that equipment. If someone calls or texts the phone, the operator will hear or see the notification and take their attention off of the safe operation of the equipment, creating a direction of travel issue. Keep your supervisor informed of any items that you see out of place throughout your work week. It is usually easy to identify major issues, such as a broken machine due to a collision or a stack of product that fell over into a drive aisle. Even smaller items that don't seem right should still be reported for evaluation. The blocking of a fire exit, for example, may seem small and insignificant. A small leak of fluid under a forklift is just a little bit of liquid, right? A leaning stack of product that has the potential to fall. It happens all the time. These small issues can turn into a big safety issue in the right context. Sometimes unconventional situations require unconventional solutions, and your supervisor is responsible to work through these situations if something unusual is observed and reported. Sometimes an observation is only made by you and could lead to a safety incident for someone else if not addressed. If you see something, say something. In the event that you are involved in an incident with a forklift or other piece of heavy machinery, notify your supervisor immediately. Even small bumps and dings must be evaluated to make sure that the equipment and structure remains safe. The supervisor must first ensure that you are uninjured and healthy. Next, the supervisor must evaluate the condition of the machine and the circumstances of the incident. If a collision does occur, it is necessary to learn from the accident. Most companies have an investigation process to determine the root cause of the incident. Moving a forklift or a machine out of the context of the incident makes it difficult to determine the true root cause and prevent future accidents. When it comes to machine breakdowns and safely repairing them, there are two different categories of employees who can interact with the machine. The first is an affected employee. This is an employee who is working with or near equipment, machinery, or a vehicle. An affected employee must never attempt to repair equipment or machinery because they are not qualified to do so. An affected employee can only tag out equipment to take it out of service and notify an authorized employee that maintenance is needed. If an affected employee sees something wrong, they should not take it upon themselves to make temporary or makeshift repairs. When I was younger and on a college budget, I once fixed my Ford Escort car with a paperclip. This was a makeshift repair that did work, but it had zero durability. Looking back at this scenario, I put myself at major risk of the repair breaking at an unexpected time while at a speed on the road. These types of repairs are not appropriate and can further lead to safety incidents. There are a set of procedures for interacting with equipment that is not functioning as intended called lockout-tagout and controlling hazardous energy. These procedures define an authorized employee as a worker who is trained and has permission to lock out, block out, or tag out machinery or equipment from service and maintenance. Authorized employees are normally service technicians, mechanics, or facility maintenance personnel. Training on the specific hazards of the machine must be completed by authorized employees before being given the authorization to work on a broken down machine. If you would like to become an authorized employee, speak with your supervisor to learn more. If you made it to this point in the video, check out part 1 of this series linked on the screen right now. If you're interested in more safety content, see the other videos on the Supply Chain Pros channel. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you found value in this video and would like to see more of this content. This is your Supply Chain Pro, out.